I need to know if I've completely lost touch with reality, or if something's truly wrong with my 7-year-old daughter. Because ever since she started drawing monsters that look exactly like our neighbors, one of them vanished without a trace. And now, she's drawn one that looks like me. My daughter has always been a normal kid, played with dolls, watched cartoons, cried when she scraped her knees. Her name's Hannah. She started drawing when she was 4, after my wife, Claire, bought her one of those thick colored pencil sets for kids. At first, it was the usual: houses with smoke coming out of chimneys, stick figure families, yellow suns with smiley faces. We live on a quiet suburban street, the kind where everyone knows everyone, at least by sight. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, out early and back by late afternoon. Claire's an elementary school teacher, so she spends more time with Hannah during vacations. Our routine was simple: family breakfast, I go to work, Claire takes Hannah to school, lunch, nap, snacks, backyard playtime, dinner, bath, bedtime stories. Hannah was always observant. She'd sit by her bedroom window, which faces the street, and watch everything. She knew everyone's schedules. Mr. Benson from the Yellow House left at 7 a.m. for his job at the garage, always wearing a red and black Chicago Bulls t-shirt. Mrs. Delaney from number 15 watered her plants every day at 5 p.m. Mr. Griffin from the corner smoked outside after lunch, always wearing the same faded straw hat. I thought it was cute how she noticed these things. When I came home from work, she'd tell me who passed by, what new car showed up, if someone had argued. It became our bonding time, me asking about her day while she reported her findings like a tiny investigative reporter. The shift started when Hannah turned 6, not a sudden transformation, but gradual. The happy suns grew extra rays, then sharp teeth. The little houses became angular, with windows like wide, staring eyes. The stick figure families got elongated limbs, too long to be normal. Claire noticed it first. As a teacher, she knew changes in children's drawings could reflect emotional disturbances. We asked if something was wrong at school, if someone had upset her, or if she was afraid of anything. Hannah always said things were fine. She just liked drawing different things. The real turning point came last year, when she started 1st grade. Her drawings stopped being houses and families. They became creatures. Monsters, specifically. But not cartoon monsters, no cutesy dragons or wide-eyed critters. These were disturbing. Humanoid features twisted beyond recognition, exaggerated noses, mouths lined with uneven teeth, arms like tentacles, legs too thin to support their bodies. Some wore recognizable clothes, t-shirts, hats, glasses, but always on grotesque forms. Claire was organizing Hannah's drawings in a folder when she stopped cold. One particular drawing featured a creature with a hooked nose, wearing a red shirt with a badge on it, holding something that looked like a wrench. Its face was distorted, eyes mismatched, a crooked mouth full of sharp teeth. But the shirt was unmistakable. That was the same shirt Mr. Benson wore every single day. A red and black Chicago Bulls tee, faded, with an oil stain on the left side. And the wrench made sense too. He's a mechanic. We tried to rationalize. Hannah saw Mr. Benson every day. It was natural for reality to seep into her artwork. Kids process the world through drawings. Maybe she just had a negative impression of him. Maybe it was pure imagination. But then, there were others. A wrinkled, hunched creature with a straw hat and smoke curling from its mouth, clearly Mr. Griffin. The proportions were wrong. Head too small, shoulders sagging unnaturally, fingers long like dried twigs. A curly-haired woman wearing a floral apron and holding a watering can, Mrs. Delaney. A chubby creature with huge glasses carrying a briefcase, Mr. Rivera from number 23, who works at a bank. Claire tried asking gently. During snack time, she asked about the drawings. Hannah, munching a cookie, said matter-of-factly that she was drawing the people she saw on the street, but the way they really were on the inside. When we asked what that meant, she grew frustrated, said it was too obvious, that grown-ups always pretend, but she could see what people really were underneath. Claire and I shared a worried look. Was our daughter developing some kind of disorder? Was she seeing the world as hostile? We booked an appointment with a child psychologist. The doctor said it was common for kids to test creative boundaries, and as long as Hannah was behaving normally otherwise, there was no reason to worry. And she was normal. She ate well, slept well, had friends, did great at school. The only weird thing was the drawings. They kept coming. What unsettled me most was the level of detail. Hannah drew scars I'd never noticed on neighbors, tiny limps, specific ways of holding objects. It was like she was observing people with surgical precision. I started paying more attention to our neighbors when I got home from work. Did Mr. Benson really have that hunched posture Hannah drew? Did Mrs. Delaney always frown like that? The more I observed, the more I realized my daughter noticed things I didn't, subtle things that most adults would overlook. Then one day, Hannah brought home a drawing from school. The teacher had asked the kids to draw their families. Hannah drew a monstrous version of the three of us. Me as a creature in a suit with dead eyes and a weary expression. Claire with multiple arms, each one holding something different. Books, pans, cleaning products, and a tired face. Hannah drew herself as a small, normal girl in the middle of us. The teacher called and asked if everything was okay at home. We explained Hannah's creative phase, but I could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. Soon, notes from school began suggesting Hannah should talk to the guidance counselor. Things at home got tense between Claire and me. She thought we needed more serious help, maybe even medication. I resisted. I told her it was just a weird artistic phase. Our arguments happened late at night in the kitchen, whispered so Hannah wouldn't hear, but they were growing more anxious. Hannah seemed oblivious to our concern. She kept drawing her monsters like any kid would draw flowers. Sometimes I'd catch her by the window, staring outside for long stretches, pencil paused in her hand, as if trying to capture something invisible to the rest of us. Then came the drawing of Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker lived at the far end of our street, in an old two-story house with a neglected garden and windows that were always shut. He was the kind of neighbor everyone knew of, but no one really knew. A quiet man in his 60s, rarely seen and even less frequently heard. When we'd greet him, he'd nod silently, no smiles. Hannah drew him on a Tuesday in March. It was different from her usual sketches, darker, more detailed. The creature had a generally human shape, but with impossible proportions. Shoulders far too wide, neck far too thin, arms stretching nearly to the floor. The face was the most disturbing part, half human, half something else. One eye was normal, the other was pure white, without a pupil. What grabbed my attention was the specificity. The unshaven beard, the blue and white plaid shirt Mr. Whitaker always wore, the slightly crooked gold-rimmed glasses. She even drew the ink stain on his pocket, a detail I had only noticed recently myself after obsessively comparing her drawings to real life. I asked her when she made that drawing. She said it was after lunch, while watching from her window. I asked if she had seen Mr. Whitaker outside that day. She shook her head and said she had dreamed about him the night before. Dreamed? That disturbed me in a way I couldn't explain. Hannah had never said she dreamt about the neighbors before. She always said she drew what she saw, not what she dreamed. I tried pressing for more details, but she had already moved on to playing with her dolls. By Friday, Mrs. Delaney knocked on our door.
She was worried. She hadn't seen Mr. Whitaker in days. He usually took the trash out every Thursday morning, the one thing he did regularly. But this time, the garbage sat untouched. Claire suggested maybe he had gone on a trip, but Mrs. Delaney was certain she'd never seen him leave with luggage or mention plans. Plus, the lights in the house kept turning on and off at odd hours, and she swore she saw movement behind the curtains. On Saturday, she came back even more agitated. She'd rung his doorbell over and over, called his name. Nothing. His car was still in the driveway. The few plants in his front yard were wilting. We called the police. The police showed up Monday morning. They tried standard procedures, knocking, yelling, calling, no answer. Eventually, they got permission to enter the house and forced the front door open. The house was empty. Not empty like furniture missing. Everything was there. Mr. Whitaker's things were neatly in place. Empty like there was no trace of him. His clothes were still in the closet, food in the fridge, bills paid and stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. It looked like he had simply vanished. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no signs of rushing to leave. His suitcases were still in the closet. His wallet, cash, and ID sat on the bedroom dresser. His car in the driveway, keys still hanging in the kitchen. The investigation dragged on for weeks. Cops interviewed all the neighbors, checked what few security cameras were around, traced his bank activity, called the old contacts in his address book. Most numbers were disconnected or outdated. Nothing. Mr. Whitaker had simply ceased to exist. During all this, Hannah kept her normal routine: school, snacks, drawings. When we asked about Mr. Whitaker, she just shrugged and said she didn't know where he was. But I noticed a strange expression when she looked at his house. Not fear, not curiosity, almost satisfaction. 2 weeks after his disappearance, I found Hannah sitting at her bedroom window again. She had a pencil in her hand, paper on her lap, but she wasn't drawing, just staring. I asked what she was doing. She said she was waiting to see if he came back. I asked why she thought he would. She looked at me with a seriousness far beyond her years and said, "Sometimes people fall out of the drawing and get lost. Then they have to find their way back." I was chilled to the bone. I asked what she meant by fall out of the drawing, but she had already turned back to the window.
It was on a Thursday that I found it. I came home early from work. My doctor had canceled an appointment. Hannah was still at school. Claire had gone grocery shopping. The house was quiet, holding that strange stillness of empty afternoons. I went into Hannah's room to grab a phone charger I'd left there the night before. On her desk, surrounded by scattered pencils and pencil shavings, was a new drawing. It was me. Or rather, a monstrous version of me. The creature wore my gray work suit. It had my receding hairline, my reading glasses. But the face made my stomach turn. The eyes were two black voids, completely lifeless. The mouth was wide open in a silent scream, filled with rows of jagged, uneven teeth. The body was twisted into an impossible position, like it was broken from the inside. The hands, my hands, had fingers that were too long, ending in claw-like nails. But the worst part was the expression. It wasn't just fear or anger, it was pure desperation. Like the creature, me, knew exactly what was happening to him and couldn't stop it. My legs went weak. I sat on Hannah's bed, still holding the paper, trying to process what I was seeing. My own daughter had drawn me as one of the monsters, just like she had drawn the neighbors, just like she had drawn Mr. Whitaker 3 days before he disappeared. Suddenly, the house felt too small, the air too heavy. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. The walls of Hannah's room, covered with her drawings, many of them featuring her twisted versions of our neighbors, seemed to close in around me. Could this be a coincidence? Was it possible Mr. Whitaker had simply left on his own and Hannah's drawing was just bad timing? But what if it wasn't? I mentally ran through all the drawings she had made. Every neighbor who appeared as a monster in her sketches was still alive and well, going to work, trimming hedges, living their normal lives. Except Mr. Whitaker. I went back to the kitchen, still holding the drawing, and called Claire. I asked when she'd be home, trying to keep my voice steady. She said she was stuck in traffic, 20 minutes away. 20 minutes to decide what to do with the fact that my 7-year-old daughter had turned me into a monster on paper. I poured a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table. The drawing stared back at me, those hollow eyes seeming to peer through me. I tried to come up with rational explanations. Hannah was just going through a weird art phase. Kids see the world differently. Maybe I was projecting my own guilt, working too much, being short-tempered, missing time with family. But why had Mr. Whitaker disappeared right after she drew him? And why, when I looked at my own monstrous face on that page, did I feel like she had captured something real, something I didn't want to admit? When Claire came home, I hid the drawing. I couldn't explain my fear without sounding insane. Instead, I casually brought up the investigation. Claire said the police were treating it as a voluntary disappearance. A lonely man with no close family, maybe he just wanted to start over somewhere else. But I knew he hadn't left willingly. I knew because I'd seen the same desperation on his drawn face as I saw on mine. Hannah got home from school around 5 p.m., like always. She kissed Claire and me, talked about gym class, asked for a snack. Completely normal 7-year-old behavior. Except her eyes. When she looked at me, I felt like I was being studied, analyzed, like she was seeing through me, picking up on details I didn't even notice about myself. It was the same gaze I'd seen her give the neighbors from her bedroom window. During dinner, I tried a subtle approach. "So," I asked, "do you still like drawing monsters?" Hannah nodded as she bit into her hamburger. "Yeah, I like them because monsters are more honest in people." Honest how? She looked at me with the exaggerated patience kids reserve for adults who just don't get it. People pretend to be nice and pretty, but inside, they're ugly and sad. Monsters don't pretend, they're just what they are. Claire and I exchanged glances. We asked if something had happened at school, if someone had been mean to her, if anything made her feel like people were bad. She shook her head. It's not about being bad or good, it's about being real. After dinner, while Hannah was in the shower, I showed Claire the drawing of me. She turned pale. Her hands trembled slightly as she held it. When did she make this? I told her I found it that afternoon. Claire said we need professional help now.
Not just a psychologist, a psychiatrist. There was clearly something wrong, and we had to act before it got worse. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Because, terrifying as it was, Hannah wasn't wrong about me. I did feel like that monster, hollow, exhausted, screaming on the inside. My job drained me. I had no time for my family. I was angry, irritable, tired. On the outside, I looked like a responsible father and husband. But inside, I was exactly the thing she had drawn. And if she could see that in me, what else could she see? What had she seen in Mr. Whitaker that made him disappear? The answer came at 3 in the morning on a quiet Friday. I woke up to a strange noise coming from Hannah's room, a rhythmic sound, like someone scribbling on paper over and over. I figured she'd woken up and couldn't fall back asleep. Sometimes kids do that, start drawing in the middle of the night. I went down the hallway and saw her bedroom door slightly open. Through the gap, I could see her at her desk, hunched over a sheet of paper. The soft glow from her bedside lamp cast eerie shadows on the walls behind her. I pushed the door open slowly, trying not to startle her. She didn't look up, but she spoke without turning around. "I knew you were coming." I asked why she was awake, if she had a bad dream. She kept drawing, her pencil strokes precise and deliberate. "It wasn't a dream," she said. "It was a visit." A chill ran down my spine. I asked what she meant by visit, but that's when she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were different, older, like they carried knowledge no child should have. "Mr. Whitaker came to visit me," she said. "He wants to come back." I felt the blood freeze in my veins. I tried to stay calm. "How could Mr. Whitaker visit you if he disappeared?" Hannah sighed, like I was being incredibly slow. "He didn't disappear, Daddy. He's stuck in the drawing. They all are." She turned the paper toward me. It was another drawing of Mr. Whitaker, but this one was even more detailed than the first. And there was something in his eyes, an expression of pleading, of desperation, like he was trying to say something, like he was alive in there. "When I draw people the way they really are," Hannah said gently, "they get stuck in the real version of themselves. They can't pretend anymore." I asked, my voice cracking, "What happened to people who got stuck?" "They go to the place where real things live," she said. "It's dark, but it's honest. There are no lies there." My legs gave out again. I sat on her bed, trying to process the fact that my 7-year-old daughter was telling me she had trapped our neighbor in some kind of alternate dimension with a drawing. "What about the other neighbors?" I asked. "Why aren't they stuck too?" Hannah turned back to her paper, shading Mr. Whitaker's face with uncanny precision. "Because I haven't finished their drawings yet," she said. "Mr. Whitaker was easy. He was already almost there, just needed a little push." She paused and looked at me, her expression soft. "Just like you, Daddy. You're almost there too. That's why it was easy to finish your drawing." The room felt like it was spinning. I clutched the edge of her bed to stay upright. My daughter was calmly telling me that she had sent a man into some kind of truth dimension, and I was next. "Sweetie," I said, trying to sound calm despite the panic in my throat, "this isn't real. You're telling a story, just a pretend story about your drawings." She smiled, a sad smile, almost pitying. "I know you don't believe me, Daddy, but you will." She went back to drawing. Each line she added to Mr. Whitaker's face seemed to make him more real, more alive. I could swear the eyes on the paper followed me when I moved. "What do you want from me, Hannah?" She put her pencil down and looked at me with a mix of love and certainty. "I want you to stop pretending, Daddy. You're tired of acting like everything's okay. You're tired of pretending you love me when all you feel is guilt. You're tired of pretending you're happy when you're screaming inside." Every word was a knife, because she was right. "I just want you to be real," she said. "If you can be real, I don't have to finish your drawing. You can stay here. You can stay yourself." I asked her what being real meant. "It means admitting you hate your job, that you married Mom because it was expected, not because you loved her. That having kids was a mistake because you don't know how to be a dad." Each word cut deeper than the last, and each one was true. I asked, "And if I can't stop pretending?" She picked up her pencil and kept shading the darkness around Mr. Whitaker's eyes. "Then you'll go where the real things live, like he did." I sat in silence, watching her draw. Each stroke of her pencil seemed to drain the light from the room. Eventually, I got up and left, my legs barely carrying me. Claire was still asleep, unaware that our daughter had just given me a supernatural ultimatum. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Hannah's words.
She was right. My life was a lie, an elaborate construction of obligations and guilt, nothing I truly wanted. But how do you stop pretending after a lifetime of performance? And if she really had this power, what would happen to me if I failed? The next morning, Claire noticed something was off. She asked if I was feeling okay, if I hadn't slept well. I mumbled something about work, another lie in a towering stack of them. Hannah ate her breakfast like usual, chatted about school, kissed me on the forehead before leaving, as if our 3 a.m. conversation had never happened. But I knew it had, and I knew she was waiting for an answer. That afternoon, I got a call from Claire. She was crying. The school had contacted her. Hannah had had an episode during art class. She drew something that deeply disturbed the teacher, so much so that the teacher tore up the drawing and escorted Hannah straight to the principal's office. When Claire arrived at school, she found our daughter sitting calmly in a chair, swinging her legs, staring out the window like nothing had happened. The art teacher, meanwhile, was sobbing in the hallway. The principal explained that Hannah had drawn something profoundly disturbing and inappropriate for a child her age, a scene that appeared to depict people being tortured in some kind of shadow realm. When asked about the drawing, Hannah simply said, "I was showing where the liars go." I left work immediately and drove to the school. When I arrived, Claire and the principal were speaking in low, concerned voices. Hannah was sitting nearby, silent, but I could feel her watching me. When we finally got up to leave, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "Have you decided, Daddy?" The drive home was tense. Claire was gripping the steering wheel tightly. Hannah hummed a tune in the back seat, a melody I didn't recognize, but it made my skin crawl. As soon as we got home, Claire started making phone calls. Psychologists, psychiatrists, anyone who could see us that same day. Her voice became more desperate with each attempt. Hannah went up to her room. Minutes later, I heard the unmistakable sound of pencil on paper. I followed. She was at her desk again, working on something new. When I approached, I saw it was another drawing of me, but different this time. There were 2 versions of me, side by side. One was the desperate monster from before. The other was just me, human, calm, peaceful, with a face I hadn't seen in years, content, present, at ease. "You can still choose," she said without looking up. I sat on the edge of her bed, and for the first time in weeks, I chose honesty. "Hannah, I need you to explain exactly what's happening." She paused, set her pencil down, and looked me dead in the eyes. "Do you want the real truth?" she asked, "or the kind of truth adults are able to accept?" "The real truth." She exhaled and nodded. Since I was little, I could see people the way they really are, underneath the smiles and the nice clothes. Most people have ugly things inside, not evil things, just sadness, fear, hurt they pretend isn't there. She held up the double drawing of me. "You, Daddy, are almost completely consumed by those things. There's only a tiny piece of the real you left." "And Mr. Whitaker?" There was nothing left, only anger and loneliness and pain. When I draw people like that, they fall out. They go to the place where things are real. "Do they die?" I asked. She shook her head. "They don't die. They just stop being here. They go to a place where they don't have to pretend anymore, where they can't hurt anyone." I asked if she could bring Mr. Whitaker back. She thought for a moment. "Maybe, but he'd have to want to come back, and he'd have to promise to be real." I looked down at her drawing. The 2 versions of me stared back, one twisted and tormented, the other whole and at peace. "What do you want me to do, Hannah?" "I want you to stop hurting yourself by pretending to be someone you're not.
I want you to be my real dad, not the one you think you're supposed to be." Her words hit like thunder, because she was right.
I was slowly killing myself, living a life that wasn't mine, built on expectations I never questioned. "And if I try but I fail?" I asked. Her expression turned deeply sad. "Then I'll have to finish your drawing, Daddy, because I love you too much to let you keep suffering like this." At that moment, I understood. My daughter wasn't just a child going through a strange artistic phase. She was something else. A messenger? A mirror? A judge? Someone or something meant to force people to confront their most painful truths. Claire shouted from downstairs that she'd gotten us an emergency appointment with a child psychiatrist, 4 p.m. sharp. Hannah looked at me. "Are you really going to let them try to fix something that isn't broken?" It was my turn to decide. The decision. I went downstairs and spoke to Claire. I told her maybe we should try something different first. Talk to Hannah, try to understand what she was experiencing before jumping straight to medication. She looked at me like I lost my mind. "She clearly had a psychotic episode," Claire said. "We need professional help now." That's when I said it, out loud, for the first time. "What if she's right?" "Right about what?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. "About people, about me, about the fact that we're all pretending to be something we're not." Claire was silent for a long time. Then, in a near whisper, she asked, "You really believe our daughter made a man disappear with a drawing?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh it off, call a doctor, fix everything with therapy and pills. But I couldn't. "I believe Hannah sees things we don't," I said, "and I believe she's trying to help us the only way she knows how." Claire began to cry. She said she was scared, that she didn't understand what was happening to our family, that she just wanted things to go back to normal. But I knew there was no going back, because normal was a lie. Normal was pretending everything was okay. Normal was performing a life that was slowly killing us. Normal was dying behind a smile. I went back upstairs. Hannah was still at her desk, working on something new. It was a drawing of Claire, but gentler this time, softer, more real. "I'm willing to try," I said to her. "I'll try to stop pretending." She smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen from her in weeks. "Do you promise?" I promised to try. She picked up the drawing of me, the double version, and gently tore it in half. She kept the peaceful human half. The monstrous half went into the trash. "Then, you don't have to go to the dark place, Daddy." And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten existed: hope. Claire appeared in the doorway, her eyes still red from crying. "So, what do we do now?" Hannah looked at her with so much warmth. "Now you learn to be real, and I can go back to drawing nice things." That was 3 months ago. I quit the job that was draining the life out of me. Now I freelance. I make less money, but I sleep better. Claire started writing again, something she gave up after Hannah was born. Hannah went back to drawing flowers and houses, though every now and then a monster still appears. Mr. Whitaker is still missing. The investigation has been closed. The city listed his house for sale. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I made the right choice. Should I have taken Hannah to that psychiatrist? Should I have insisted this was all just a mental health crisis? Should I have ignored her visions and forced us back into a normal life? But then I remember how I felt before, like a man drowning in shallow water, screaming for help that never came. And I remember the peace I saw on the face of the real version of me in her drawing. The question that haunts me isn't whether Hannah has supernatural powers, It's this. Was I a coward for embracing her version of reality instead of facing the possibility that she needed help? Did I save my family? Or did I doom my daughter to carry a secret no one else could understand? Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night with the eerie feeling that I'm being watched. I go to the window and look at Mr. Whitaker's empty house, and sometimes, I swear, I see a light moving behind the curtains. Hannah says they're just memories of what used to be. But when she looks at that house with that unreadable expression, I wonder if she's seeing something I never will. Yesterday, I found a new drawing on her desk. It was of an open door with light shining through. I asked her what it meant. "It's the way back," she said, "for when people are finally ready to return, for real." So, AITA for believing my 7-year-old daughter when she told me she could trap people inside her drawings? For choosing to change my life based on the visions of a child instead of seeking medical help? Or was I the only adult smart enough to listen when a child tried to save me from myself? Honestly, I don't know anymore. All I know is that for the first time in years, I sleep in peace, and my daughter is smiling again. But was it worth the price of whatever happened to Mr. Whitaker? That I leave to you.